Hello everyone, welcome to the Storyist. Legend has it that hunters in the woods often do not touch wolves with a white spot on their chests. But no one knows exactly why. This story dates back to a long, long time ago when wolves were still mortal enemies with humans. Today, I will be telling you a story about why hunters let wolves with white spots on their chest live long. Once upon a time, there lived a very beautiful maiden named Alaska. She inhabited the snowy forests with her tribe, and they all lived together like a colony. They all loved each other. All the mothers cared for each other's young, and they were very close-knit. Alaska was born to the leader family of their tribe, and she had been treated like a princess growing up. She would often be asked to attend rituals and tribal celebrations, but often her mind would go off somewhere else. Despite young Alaska's petite body and perfectly slender build, she was not the usual tribe princess you hear about of in almost every story. Young Alaska was not some fairy tale-like maiden who loved sparkly pink dresses and shiny diamond accessories. Alaska loved one thing that her father loved most as well: hunting. Alaska's father, the leader of their tribe, was a hunter. Often all the leaders of the tribe were hunters, as they were the ones who led a whole pack of their tribesmen to hunt for food and defend off predators. Alaska's father had always wanted a son to be his heir, but he was blessed by 3 beautiful daughters, and one of whom was Alaska. Alaska was the youngest and the prettiest, as many would say, but behind her innocent and sweet facade was the bravery and rogueness of her father. Her father's love for hunting had been passed on to Alaska, and taking her to the woods with him to watch him hunt helped her strengthen her skills and her love of hunting. At a very young age, her father would take her to the woods, make her watch him hunt wolves, deers, and even bears and large fish. Alaska showed interest in hunting the very first day she was taken to the woods, which made her father really happy. As a result, he brought her every day to the woods with him, and as she grew older, her father eventually taught her how to hunt. By the time Alaska turned 16, she was one of the best hunters in their tribe, and she would even bring home more animals than the other grown men members of the tribe. On her 16th birthday, her father gave her a crossbow for hunting as a gift, and she had used it almost every day since. Alaska had been depicted by other tribes as the strong young lady with a crossbow on her back, and she earned a lot of praise from her fellow tribesmen, even from those of the other tribes. Her name had been the talk of the town, and she had been famous at her time as one of the best hunters in the forest. One day, Alaska woke up to a very nice day. The wind was blowing just fine, and the trees rattled calmly as they created a beautiful melody with the streams and flowing rivers. Everywhere she looked, nature at its finest was all she saw. Alaska thought that it was the best time to hunt when all the other prey were outside, filling themselves in with nature's beauty. And so she went. Alaska brought her crossbow and hiked up to the woods where there were no people around. She heard rustling from nearby and shot her crossbow. A huge deer stopped in its tracks and dropped to the ground. "Bingo!" she exclaimed to herself, delighted with her win. She clipped the deer's toes together with a stem and dragged its body back to her trail. However, after a few steps, she heard another rustling sound. She tried to stop herself at first from shooting her crossbow once again, as she thought the deer she caught was already huge enough, and bringing 2 animals home would be more difficult feat than going home from the top of the mountains itself. So she decided to ignore the rustling, and she took a few more steps. And then the rustling began again. This time, Alaska felt an eerie fear circling her chest. The rustling was no more of a terrified deer or prey. It sounded more like that of a predator. She remembered what her father would always tell her before going hunting, that she must beware of the wolves. They were not as big as bears, but they were much stronger and fiercer. Thinking that it might be a wolf, Alaska prepared her crossbow. She released the deer's feet from her grasp and slowly pointed her crossbow to the area where the rustling came. "It's okay for you to come out," Alaska said bravely, luring the predator to her so she could release her crossbow. But she was surprised by what transpired next. Slowly, the head of a wolf came out of the bushes. Alaska was terrified, but she couldn't release her weapon. She did not know what happened to her as well. It seemed like she was paralyzed, not by fear, but of sympathy. She looked at the wolf's eyes, and it almost made her tear up. The wolf was looking at her intently, but not dangerously. It was like the wolf was asking for her to help. Slowly, she walked over to the wolf. She knew she was risking her life doing that, as wolves were man's declared enemies. They feast on men's food, leaving them little to no hunt. And, for centuries, men had been slaying as many wolves were slaying men. But Alaska set her fears aside and approached the wolf. The wolf looked startled by her gesture, and it hid behind the larger bushes while looking fearfully at her bow. Alaska realized this and put her weapon down. After a few minutes, the wolf felt comfortable enough and approached Alaska. First thing she noticed was the unique white spot on its chest that made it distinct to other wolves. The wolf then lunged at the deer Alaska caught and dragged it away. Alaska followed the wolf to a cave, and she saw 100 more wolf cubs with little white spots on their chests. The wolf howled, and all the little cubs went to the deer and feasted on it. Alaska knew that the little cubs were a whole new generation, and the wolf did not come to her to eat her or harm her, but to ask for her help. Alaska left the cave after saying goodbye to the wolf. She did not have a deer to take home, but she fed 100 more little cubs who did not try to harm her in any way, and that for her was a more incredible experience. The following day, Alaska went hunting again on the opposite side of the woods. This time she was sure the wolf she met the other day wouldn't be around to beg for her food again. Hunting was easy for her, so in just a few minutes she already had her catch before she went downhill and decided to visit the streams first, drink some fresh water, and perhaps hunt some salmon as well. But when she got there, a huge grizzly bear came to attack her. Alaska was caught off guard. She did not have her crossbow with her, as she just put it aside to drink water. So when the bear plunged at her, she couldn't do anything but run as fast as she could. She was screaming for help as she was running, although she knew she had hiked too high up in the forest that no one could hear her there. While running, Alaska was slowly losing her breath, and she was starting to lose hope as well. And just as unfortunately, she tripped over an uprooted tree and fell. The bear caught her and was about to attack her when a brave wolf attacked the bear over and over until it fell down. She ran as fast as she could while all of this was happening. When she got to the other side of the mountain, she saw a wolf with a little white spot on its chest walking towards her. It seemed weak, and it had injuries around its body, and its gray fur had turned bloody red. It was dying, but was still able to walk to her and rest on her lap. She knew instantly that it was the wolf she helped the other day, and the same wolf who saved her and attacked the bear. She brought the wolf back to her tribe. Her people were surprised and frightened, but she told them the entire story. When the wolf recovered, thanks to the tribe's people, it became friends with the natives. It brought its whole pack of wolves and new cubs. All of them had white spots on their chests, and they protected the whole tribe in exchange for shelter and food. This story had passed on to generations, and from then on, all hunters respected wolves with white spots on their chests as they came from the group of wolves who helped men survive. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed that story, and we'll see you in the next video.